My friends, let's be honest. Most people don't ask this question. They ask, do we love each other? Are we compatible? Do we communicate well? Spiritual protection in a relationship is never something that just happens. It's not a byproduct of time spent together, attraction, or even shared experiences. It's the result of intention, of two people making conscious decisions to protect not just what they have, but why they have it. Think about it like this: no one builds a house and leaves the doors wide open. You lock it, you install alarms, you create boundaries, not because you expect an attack every night, but because you value what's inside. Relationships work the same way. When two people enter a relationship, there's often a strong focus on chemistry, compatibility, fun, and goals. These are important, but they don't create protection. Protection comes when both people decide that what they are building is worth guarding, not just from obvious threats, but from the subtle, creeping influences that can break down trust, respect, and emotional connection over time. This kind of protection doesn't happen by accident. It requires conversations about boundaries, not just physical ones, but emotional and spiritual ones too. It means talking about what's sacred in your relationship. What's off limits? What influences are unhealthy? What people, habits, or distractions can weaken the connection you're trying to nurture? It also means intentionally practicing self-awareness. Are you showing up with unresolved baggage? Are you bringing fears from a past relationship into this one? Are you letting external stress dictate how you treat your partner? Spiritual protection starts at the individual level. If you're not doing the inner work, you're leaving space for conflict to grow. When both people commit to emotional and spiritual maturity, the relationship forms a kind of shield. It becomes less reactive to triggers and more grounded in clarity and compassion. Protection also comes from shared purpose. If you don't know where your relationship is going, if there's no larger why, you'll find yourself navigating in different directions. When life gets hard, and it will, you need a deeper reason to stay connected than just how good things felt when they started. A spiritually protected relationship is one where both people are not only choosing each other, but are choosing to grow together with purpose and alignment. Protection means vigilance. It means checking in, being honest when something feels off, and being willing to course correct together. When you treat the relationship like something precious that needs tending, not fixing only when it's broken, you develop a kind of resilience that other couples envy. Spiritual protection doesn't appear, it's cultivated. It's built through intention, guarded by commitment, and sustained by shared growth. If you're not protecting your relationship deliberately, you're leaving it open to influences you won't even see coming until it's too late. There are moments when conflict appears out of nowhere. A small comment turns into a full-blown argument. A misinterpreted glance or tone sets off days of tension. And often we walk away thinking, where did that even come from? The truth is, many of these issues don't begin at the surface. They begin with unseen influences operating quietly in the background. These are the thoughts, beliefs, wounds, and energies we carry, often, and they shape the way we respond to each other. What's invisible in the moment becomes deeply visible in our behavior. If someone grew up in a home where love was tied to performance, they may constantly feel the need to prove themselves in a relationship. That insecurity might show up as jealousy, over-explaining, or emotional withdrawal, not because their partner did anything wrong, but because they're reacting to a script written long before the relationship ever began. The partner, unaware of the internal narrative playing out, may feel confused, hurt, or even blamed for things they didn't cause. Most couples try to solve spiritual or emotional problems using surface-level tools. They talk about communication strategies or romantic gestures, which have their place, but they ignore the deeper layers. What needs attention is the spiritual and emotional vulnerability that's been left wide open. When past wounds, cultural messages, or toxic external influences are not addressed, they become quiet saboteurs in a relationship. They distort our view of our partner. They amplify misunderstandings. They turn disagreements into disconnections. The threat isn't even internal. It comes from the environment around the relationship. Friends who constantly criticize your partner. Social media that glorifies unattainable standards. Work stress that leaves no emotional space for connection. These things may seem small, but over time they can drain the energy and clarity a relationship needs to thrive. Without spiritual protection, without the ability to pause, reflect, and check what's really influencing your reactions, these subtle forces grow louder and stronger. The key is awareness. You have to learn to ask, is this really about what just happened, or is something deeper being triggered? You also have to develop the discipline to protect your relationship from unnecessary noise. That means being careful about who you take advice from, what you allow to shape your expectations, and how you handle the inner voices that push you toward blame instead of understanding. Unseen influences are not inherently dangerous. It's the lack of recognition and action that makes them harmful. When you learn to notice them, talk about them, and work through them, they lose their power. But when you ignore them, they quietly start to rewire the connection between you and your partner. That's why spiritual protection isn't about being paranoid or guarded. It's about being aware of what's really going on beneath the surface and staying committed to dealing with it together. Trust is one of the most valuable currencies in any relationship, and it doesn't come from grand romantic gestures or promises alone. It comes from alignment. When two people share spiritual alignment, they create a kind of emotional ecosystem where trust can grow naturally. This alignment isn't about having identical beliefs or thinking the same way on every issue. It's about moving in the same direction with a similar understanding of what matters most: respect, growth, truth, and connection. When you're spiritually aligned with someone, it shows up in how you navigate challenges. Instead of reacting from ego or fear, both people feel grounded in a deeper commitment. There's a shared belief that the relationship is bigger than just satisfying individual needs. It's about building something meaningful together, and in that space, trust flourishes, not because mistakes never happen, but because both people are anchored in the same core values. They know that when they fall out of sync, they'll work to reconnect, not run, blame, or avoid. Spiritual alignment also brings a sense of predictability, not in a boring way, but in a stabilizing way. You know how your partner responds under stress. You understand their motivations. You're aware of their emotional language. That consistency builds safety, and safety is what allows people to open up, take emotional risks, and be fully seen. When you don't have that shared spiritual foundation, it's easy to feel like you're in a relationship with a stranger, someone whose actions and decisions feel confusing, unpredictable, or disconnected from your values. On the other hand, leads to drift. It doesn't always happen in a dramatic way. Sometimes it's slow, one person growing emotionally while the other stays stuck, or one person pursuing a deeper sense of purpose while the other clings to comfort. Over time, that distance can turn into resentment, and what's tricky is that couples often try to solve that drift by focusing on symptoms, arguing about logistics, roles, or habits, instead of looking at the core issue: are we still aligned in where we're going and who we want to be together? Alignment also means having compatible standards for accountability and growth. If one person values emotional responsibility and the other refuses to self-reflect, The imbalance creates tension. One partner ends up feeling like the emotional caretaker while the other avoids difficult conversations. That's not just frustrating, it's spiritually exhausting. True alignment is when both people hold themselves to a higher standard, not out of pressure, but out of love and shared commitment. When your relationship is grounded in spiritual alignment, external pressures have less power. Opinions from others, life's inevitable stress, or even moments of failure don't shake the core of your bond. You don't just trust your partner, you trust the foundation you've built together, and that's what makes the relationship unbreakable, not because life is easy, but because your connection is rooted in something deeper than circumstance. Every relationship is being shaped, right now, by what you allow into it. Whether it's intentional or not, the things you let influence your connection with your partner are quietly forming the emotional and spiritual climate of your relationship. Just like a garden, if you don't actively plant what you want to grow, weeds will show up on their own. Neglect is never neutral. If you're not choosing what feeds your relationship, you're leaving it exposed to whatever shows up, and not everything that shows up is healthy. This is especially true in today's world, where comparison, distraction, and emotional noise are everywhere. Social media tells you what your relationship should look like. Friends offer opinions that may come from their own unresolved pain. Culture often promotes individualism over connection, and entertainment normalizes emotional games instead of genuine intimacy. If you're not protecting your relationship from these subtle influences, they start shaping your expectations, attitudes, and even the way you speak to each other. Think about how easy it is to scroll through curated highlight reels of other couples and suddenly feel like yours isn't good enough, or how a casual conversation with a friend who's frustrated in their own relationship can plant seeds of doubt in your mind. These things don't always feel like direct attacks, but over time they wear down trust, spark unnecessary comparisons, and create space for resentment to grow. That's what happens when you don't guard what comes into your emotional space. The internal messages you carry into the relationship also have a powerful influence. If you've been hurt in the past and never truly healed, that pain may start to dictate your reactions. If you don't trust yourself, it will be difficult to trust your partner. If you've let bitterness, fear, or pride take root, they will shape how you show up during conflict, how you give love, and how you receive it. What you allow in your own heart eventually spills into the dynamic between you. Spiritual protection means becoming intentional about your inputs. It means asking hard but necessary questions. Are we surrounding ourselves with people who support our growth? Are we creating emotional habits that build connection or tear it down? Are we making space for honesty, forgiveness, and vulnerability? Or are we defaulting to sarcasm, silence, and avoidance? None of this is about control or fear. It's about care. It's about recognizing that your relationship is alive, and like anything alive, it needs protection, boundaries, and nourishment. You don't leave the door to your home open overnight, not because you're paranoid, but because you care about what's inside. The same logic applies to your relationship. What you allow in today is shaping what your relationship becomes tomorrow. So choose carefully, guard wisely, love intentionally. Because even the strongest connections can break down if they're constantly exposed to harmful influences, and even the most fragile connections can grow strong when they're consistently protected. Every relationship is either growing stronger or becoming more fragile, and often the difference lies in how consciously both people show up. Many relationships don't fall apart because of one major event. They erode slowly due to neglect, assumptions, or a passive attitude toward emotional and spiritual connection. Protection isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily commitment to show up for the relationship with intention, presence, and awareness. When two people stop choosing each other intentionally, the relationship begins to drift. That drift is rarely obvious at first. It looks like skipping important conversations because they feel inconvenient. It looks like ignoring small emotional injuries, assuming they'll go away. It looks like prioritizing work, stress, or distractions without realizing the relationship is quietly becoming background noise. And over time, that quiet neglect creates distance, not because the love is gone, but because the attention is. Being intentional in a relationship means making a daily decision to care, to listen, and to nurture. It means not waiting for special occasions to show appreciation or for conflict to force a conversation. It means choosing to stay curious about your partner, how they're feeling, what they're dreaming about, what's making them anxious or excited. Intentionality transforms ordinary interactions into powerful moments of connection. It's what turns coexistence into partnership, but being intentional also means doing the inner work. A spiritually protected relationship starts with two people who take responsibility for their own growth. You can't protect what you're building together if you're not also managing your own mindset, emotions, and triggers. Emotional immaturity in one partner can create spiritual vulnerability in the whole relationship. But when both people are committed to showing up with emotional honesty, humility, and a willingness to grow, the relationship becomes a safe space, not a battleground. One of the most powerful ways to be intentional is by setting shared rituals that reinforce your connection. Whether it's regular check-ins, shared goals, or daily habits of affirmation and gratitude, these consistent actions act as anchors. They remind both of you that the relationship is something sacred, something worth actively investing in even when life gets busy or stressful. Without these rituals, it's easy to become emotionally reactive, disconnected, or overly influenced by external pressures. Intentionality also includes having the courage to protect the relationship from subtle disrespect toward each other and from others. It means drawing boundaries with people who speak negatively about your partner or influences that distort your view of love and commitment. It means standing up for your connection, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's under pressure. The strength of your relationship isn't just measured by how much you love each other in good times. It's measured by how deliberately you protect that love. Relationships that last don't survive by default. They're built through consistent, intentional effort. Because love that isn't guarded doesn't just fade. It gets shaped by everything that fills the space you left unprotected. So here's the truth. Love on its own is not enough. Chemistry is not enough. Even time spent together isn't enough if you're not protecting what you're building. A spiritually protected relationship doesn't happen by luck. It happens when two people choose every day to build something deeper than just shared moments. It's about creating alignment, not just attraction, awareness, not just affection. If you don't guard your relationship with intention, the world will shape it for you through distractions, unresolved pain, careless words, or subtle comparisons. But when you decide to protect your connection spiritually, through shared values, conscious communication, emotional accountability, and clear boundaries, you build a bond that can't be easily broken. You create a partnership that doesn't just survive pressure, it grows stronger under it. Are we spiritually protected, or are we wide open to attack? Because if you don't define your relationship's foundation, the cracks will eventually define it for you. Protect what matters, not just with your words, but with your awareness, your discipline, your love, and your choices. That's how real relationships last, not by avoiding the storms, but by being built strong enough to endure them. Together,